Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
Not too bad. So, on today's podcast, we will be reacting to the end of the season matches in the Premier League and Scottish Premier League, reacting to a dramatic last day in the Bundesliga, reacting to the latest Scotland squad announcement, previewing this weekend's FA Cup and Scottish Cup final. And at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So coming up next, we will be reacting to last weekend's Premier League matches. So on Sunday, the 28th of May, the last day of the 2022-23 Premier League season was played out. By the end of the season, we found out that the relegated teams were Southampton, Leeds United and Leicester City. Everton's win against Bournemouth on the last day meant that Leeds, Leicester and will be playing Championship football next season. Aston Villa managed to claim a European spot after defeating Brighton on the last day. This now means that Tottenham will not play European football for the first time in 14 years. So, Pearse, what is your overall reaction to our dramatic last day of the Premier League season?
To be honest, it's just total entertainment. That's what the Premier League delivers. And I'd just like to go out here and say that Oracle Pearse here, by the way, because about 3-4 weeks ago, I predicted all three relegated teams to get relegated. Southampton, Leicester, and who was our team?
Leicester.
Leeds. Aye, Leeds.
And Leeds, yeah.
Aye. So I predicted Nottingham Forest would escape and Everton would just nick it with the skin of their teeth. And that's what they done. But no, you cannot predict. Like obviously Tottenham last year sneaking into the Champions League, 4th place under Conte. This season they've also just threw it away by sacking Conte with his comments earlier on, and then just caretaker charge, and they just basically just kind of handed their season away. But for someone like Harry Kane to get 30 Premier League goals in a season, and a team that Tottenham themselves have struggled for goals, there's no creativity. Son's been not at his best, so it's virtually just been him on his own. For him to do that and only have 8 less league goals than Erling Haaland, who's been a sensation in this kind of Man City team that just kind of all conquering in Europe and domestically in all fronts. They're going for an unprecedented treble. It's unreal, and the fact is, this is Harry Kane's. He's equalled his best league tally since 17-18 under Pochettino, and he deserves full credit. But for him not to have Champions League or even Europa League or Conference League, he's going to a Champions League team that season. I could see him going to Manchester United or Chelsea because they need a number 9. And also, fairy tale for Brighton to get Europa League. Some of the football they play under De Zerbi is outstanding, and Newcastle Champions League nights at St James's Park, that is going to be magical, by the way.
That will be good. So obviously, after the last day of the season finished, we found out that Leeds and Leicester will be relegated after Everton won against Bournemouth. So I just want to ask, what is your reaction to both these teams going down?
Leeds and Leicester?
Yeah.
I felt as if Leeds' squad wasn't good enough. In terms of like defensively, they leaked too many goals. The one game that stood out for me was the one they get absolutely battered against Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace, maybe like a month or two ago, with Javier Gracia in charge. And for a team that was fighting for their lives in the league, the one thing you need to do is kind of make them solid, resolute, and similar to what Sean Dyche had done. It's not pretty, not exciting, but it gets results. And same with Leicester. Leicester appointed Dean Smith. Did not fill me with any confidence at all. They probably should have kept Brendan Rodgers. I don't think Brendan Rodgers would have got them relegated. But the fact is that he left, for me, kind of cemented a place in the Championship for next season. And with their squad, they've got a lot of big players leaving. I think they might be down in the Championship for a couple of years. It might take them. I don't think they'll bounce back up straight away. They'll be losing Maddison. They'll be losing Tielemans. They'll be losing a lot of top class players, and maybe Vardy might even retire. They might leave as well. You never know. and Dewsbury Hall will be attracting players like Harvey Barnes has been linked with Villa already. So they're talking about a core of their team will be going. And for me, was it the start of the season, selling something like Kasper Schmeichel, that you need a top quality keeper. Look at, I'm going to compare it to the SBL in Scotland. You look at Dundee United, they relegated. But I think if they'd Benjamin Siegrist in goals, they wouldn't have been relegated. Like you build from the back, and that's proven at any level. If you're resolute at the back, it's a platform for you to go in forward and build on. And similar to what I said about Leicester, I think Leeds might have had a better chance if they just stuck with Jesse Marsh.
Well, just touching on Leeds, I think the writing's been on the wall for them for a couple of months. I think it just came down defensively for them. They just defensively they're not good enough. Conceding 3+ goals every game. That's and if you're in a relegation battle, that's never going to you're never going to stay up. I think the recruitment's been poor. For example, in January they signed a striker, Rutter, for 36 million, and he's hardly played. That 36 million could have went towards two free defenders. So recruitment's been really poor for them. They've had a really poor season, and defensively, at the end of the day, for Leeds, it's just not been good enough. Leicester, I'll be honest, I'm really surprised with Leicester. And if you told me at the start of this season, well, last season, that if Leicester would be relegated, I never would have believed you. Obviously last summer they didn't have a great summer window. They didn't really bring many players in, but I always thought they would have had enough to have stayed up at least. Especially with the players, and going forward with Madison, Harvey Barnes, Kelechi, Iheanacho, players like that, Patson Daka. But just obviously now that's Leicester now gone. But we've got to touch on the fact that what a period of Premier League football it's been for them. Since they came back up into the Premier League. I think if you told any Leicester fan back then when they got promoted to the Premier League that by the time they'd go back down, they'd have won the Premier League, won an FA Cup, won a Community Shield, played Champions League football. It's been such a good time for them. They've had an absolutely brilliant period in the Premier League. So it's sad to see them go, because they've been brilliant. But that's the way it is. And you did touch on Dean Smith. I will be honest, I wasn't really sure about Dean Smith when he came in. Going from Brendan Rodgers to Dean Smith, I wasn't filled with hope about their chances. So, but at the end of the day, that's what's happened. So I just want to touch on Aston Villa briefly. So obviously, last day of the season, it was confirmed that they'll be playing European football. So obviously, Unai Emery came in November, and since then he's done. So what do you think of the job he's done since he's come in?
It's been sensational. It just shows you what quality coaching can do. Someone like a novice like Steven Gerrard had them playing horribly. They could barely score. You look at the upturning fortunes, and someone like Ollie Watkins, I think it was like 10, 11 goals since January. It's unreal form for him. I think he ended the season on 15 Premier League goals, which is a good return. But the fact is he didn't really bring in many players. I think he brought maybe one or two players there. I know he brought in Alex Moreno from Real Betis at left back, and one or two others. But the fact is, I think they were 17th, 18th when he took over. So that's a relegation, a flip relegation, and to get him into Europe. But the fact is, his team is just similar to what Gary Neal's done at Bournemouth. A lot of the work has gone under the radar, just consistently picking up points. And the football he's been playing has actually been pretty good as well. And obviously with them this summer, I can see them having a good successful window. And like you said, he's a serial winner. He didn't work out at Arsenal. Arsenal was quite cutthroat, and I thought maybe a wee bit too premature to sack him, because he did fall in obviously Arsene Wenger. But in Europe, and especially in Europa League for Villarreal and it was at Sevilla, in La Liga in general. He's been an outstanding manager, and he's proven to yet again in the Premier League he can cut it with a lesser team in Aston Villa. Though we've got cracking history, but in terms of like the competing against like the top, your predominant top six, I think he's done fantastic to secure European football. I think it's the first time since what Martin O'Neill back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
fantastic job he's done. An absolutely brilliant job. I just think the big thing with Unai Emery coming to Aston Villa is the improvement in players. You know, Jacob Ramsey is improved dramatically. John McGinn has been a revelation since Unai Emery's came in. He's been absolutely brilliant. You know, it was tough for him because he got the captaincy at the start of the season under Gerrard. You know, it didn't. You know, it kind of looks like it was taking its toll on him. You know, there was a lot of pressure on him. But Unai Emery's come in, and you know I just feel like McGinn, especially, you know, he's calmed down a lot. You know, he's grown into the captaincy role, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Same with Tyrone Mings. You know, he's had his critics. You know, he got the captaincy taken off him by Gerrard, so you know his confidence might have taken a bit of a blow. But you know, he's been brilliant. Alex Moreno, he's been a brilliant signing for Villa since he came in January. So I just think with Aston Villa, the job Unai Emery's done, I just think it's an improvement in players. You know, every single player that I've looked at that's been playing consistently under Unai Emery, they've all seemed to have really improved a lot. And you know, Unai Emery's he's amazing in European football when it comes to European competitions. So I wouldn't rule out them having a good Conference League. You know, you just and if they have a good summer window, as you said, you know, it's exciting times for Aston Villa. Absolutely, especially with a manager like Unai Emery. So not really good times for them coming up. So I just want to say, lastly, have you enjoyed the 22-23 Premier League season?
I have. You'd obviously prefer someone other than Man City to win the league, but the way they've won it has been exciting because Arsenal have led for so long. The relegation battles went down to the final day, so no one was relegated super early. Apart from maybe Southampton, but they had a young squad. You kind of seen it happening, and obviously the surprise packages Aston Villa getting in Europe, Leicester getting relegated, which obviously you don't want to see a big club get relegated, and obviously Brighton getting Europe as well, and obviously Newcastle Champions League football, considering where they were last season and at the start of last season, then Steve Bruce in charge, and then Eddie Howe takes over, and he has a good run, but you're like, can he maintain it? Can he build on that? He certainly has done. So for me, it's been an exciting season. Harry Kane to 30 Premier League goals, Erling Haaland 38, Man City champions going for a treble, Manchester United going for double in the cup competitions as well. Set for a thrilling end like the last couple of weeks in terms of like other competitions, but the Premier League seasons is not disappointed, and I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Yep. So just touching on, you know, I think it's been quite refreshing. You know, apart from Man City winning the title, which is coming a bit of a regular thing, but the top four pretty different. You know, Man United and Newcastle in it. You know, Arsenal as well for the first time in 6 years. So they three teams getting in the top four. That's quite good to see. You know, in terms of European places, you know, Aston Villa and Brighton. Don't think anyone would have maybe Brighton, but I don't think anyone would have said Aston Villa. So that's been quite good to see. And although relegation is bad for any club that does get relegated, you know, I think Leicester is quite a surprise package. You know, I don't think a lot of people would have said that. I think everyone would have said Bournemouth. And look at the job Gary Neal's done at Bournemouth. So it's just been quite refreshing. You know, it's been quite unpredictable. So no, it's been a really good season in the Premier League. So we will now move on to discussing the last weekend of the Scottish Premier League season. So on Saturday, 27th of May, we witnessed Celtic lifting the Scottish Premier League trophy after defeating Aberdeen 5-0 on the last day of the season. We also found out that Hearts finished fourth position after drawing with their fiercest rivals Hibs, which now means that Hearts will play European football next season. This also means that Hibs finished in fifth position and will now need Celtic to win the Scottish Cup in order for them to play European football next season. So on Sunday, the 28th of May, the day after, the other remaining Scottish Premier League matches were played, and it was confirmed that Dundee United will be playing Championship football next season after being defeated by Motherwell 3-2. We also found out that Ross County will be playing in the SPFL relegation playoff after they were defeated by Kilmarnock 3-1 on the last day. Ross County will be playing Partick Thistle in the playoff, so Partick Thistle do have an opportunity to come into the top flight. So Pearse, what is your reaction to the last weekend of the SPFL season?
Hi, Dermy, yet again, Tom. Seeing Dundee United getting confirmed relegation, I think the writing was on the wall all season. Similar to Leicester, they just didn't have good organisation at the back, and they were too reliant on one man up front, which was Stephen Fletcher, who I thought played well this season, but Celtic was at 20 Watt in January, and was it Nicky Clark losing Nicky Clark this summer as well? That's a big attacking threat, potent attacking threat taking away from your team. Ross County getting the relegation playoff. It was a toss up between them and Kilmarnock in the end. With them with Partick Thistle in the playoff. That for me, that's a toss of a coin that can go either way. It'd be refreshing. It'd be nice to see Partick Thistle come back up after spending quite a couple of years away in League One, then Championship, and then back to League One, then back to Championship. So, and obviously they played Rangers in the Cup earlier this season, and they gave them a good go at Ibrox. So it'd be nice to see a fresh face. Celtic back to the best. Winning final on Trophy Day. Nice to see virtually the strongest team possible out. Just in time for the Scottish Cup final, which will be this weekend. We'll talk about that a bit more detail later on. Rangers winning comfortable winners against St Mirren, which isn't easy doing because St Mirren have been sensational this season. And obviously the high drama of the Edinburgh Derby. Tempest Flare, you expect that, and then red cards. Like I think Cochrane's got 3 or 4 red cards this season. It's no surprise there. And obviously clash at the end because of what meant like the guaranteed European place. But you always feel as if Hearts have got an edge over Hibs. Hibs just seem to bottle at this against when they play Hearts. I don't know if it's like a mentality thing. You probably wouldn't say technically they're better than each other, probably level, probably even. But it's just a mentality thing. Like Hearts probably play more defensive style football, but they have this thing where they just know how to get a win, to be honest. And I think Stephen Naismith's done a good job since he came in. But Robbie Williams done a good job. He had a poor run. And he'd be similar to Barry Robson, might be getting full-time position next season, maybe.
Yep. So just starting off the games that were played on Saturday. So the biggest game was probably the Edinburgh Derby, because I had much more ramifications. Obviously a 1-1 draw. As you said, Tempest Flare. I think now with Hearts, with European football next season, the fact that they finished 4th. I think Stephen Naismith. I think he's in for a really good chance now of getting the permanent job. He's actually done not too bad since he's come in, since he replaced Robbie Neilson. So I could see that happening. Hibs, it's been, they'll be disappointed. Hearts went down to 10 men really early on in the game. Hibs had a lot of chances. They could have won that by quite a few goals, but they just couldn't get it over the line. But I think Hibs at the end will be pretty pleased. They had a tough start to the season, but they seemed to pick up towards the end of the season. They really started gaining a bit of momentum. That their start 11 was pretty similar. So obviously Hibs they'll be praying that Celtic win the Scottish Cup because that means that they'll get European football. So that was definitely the highlight Saturday. And then on Sunday, that was quite a big day. Starting off with Dundee United getting relegated, that was the writing on the wall was there for them. I think that's been coming for a while. But I'm just so disappointed with Dundee United because I never expected at the start of the season for them to be relegated. With the squad they've got. That's, in my opinion, that's one of the best squads in the division. Definitely up there in the top six. I think they should have been there, around about there at least. So it's been a really disappointing season for them. You know, and it's going to be a big summer because Jim Goodwin's got the job permanently now. So it's going to be a big summer for them in terms of getting players in, getting players out, and making a quick comeback to the top flight because they're too big a club in my opinion to be in Championship. They should be in the top flight consistently year in year out. And then
Aye,
as you and
sorry,
we were touching
just want to touch on this, mate. Like, obviously, like you said, big summer in terms of like to be big. Because I think Dundee United's squad is good, and I think the wages are probably one of the highest in the league compared outside the Edinburgh sides and the old Firm. But I do think see, like, players might even want to leave because players might not want to drop down to the Championship. I'm thinking off the top of my head, players like Glenn Middleton, Dylan Levitt. For me, two young players that could easily play in the top six in the SPL, and talented young players as well. And obviously, no Dundee Derby next season because the opposite Dundee teams went up. So that was a big incentive to stay in the league. But obviously, John Goodwin didn't have much time to work with the team, didn't have a window. It was tough on him. He had a tough season, to be honest. Even at Aberdeen, he was tough because he had a poor run there as well. But I think if he's a good summer and recruits and managed to keep hold of the two players and obviously build on the squad that he has, and obviously, but you'll have a big decision as well. You'll have Tony Watt returning, who hasn't really featured or worked in the team, but he'll be on big wages because he came from Motherwell, who got Europe in that, so he was a top goal scorer. So it'll be interesting to see with United because, like you say, I think they're too big a club to be in the Championship.
hmm Yeah, that's what I think as well. And so you were touching on it a bit earlier on there about Ross County now. They're in the playoff. Partick Thistle they'll be playing, and we'll see who either gets promoted or who gets relegated. So who do you think will come out on top?
I think Malky Bucky's done a fantastic job at Ross County. I've just got a sneaky feeling Thistle will Partick Thistle will do it. Like I say, I think it's on a knife edge. I think it will go both ways. It will hammer and throw. But going on this season, like Ross County have been good this season, but they've had a few injuries and obviously they lost the top goals for last season. Eamon Brophy was a good signing in January, so was Simon Murray. But I just don't. I just think the form's dipped a bit, and obviously the momentum was also off the Championship side, who's been playing really well this season. So uh, it's a knife edge. I'm going to say Thistle just. So I think they probably might even go at extra time in the second leg. So you never know.
Yep. No, I agree. I think Partick Thistle. I just think Partick Thistle, based on the kind of the form they're in, they've been amazing since the playoffs have started. They've Chris Doolan, since Chris Doolan's come in to be the manager of Partick Thistle, he's done a brilliant job. Last Friday there, they beat EA United 4-0 away from home to secure their playoff final position. So I just think, and obviously Ross County, they'll be disappointed. You know, so I just think in terms of moods between the two teams, I just think Partick Thistle have got the upper hand in that. They'll be much more confident. Ross County, well, maybe not, but they might be feeling a bit sorry for themselves. So and it's two legs. It's two legs as well. So I'm going to say Partick Thistle. Um, but you were saying about Malcolm Mackay. Yeah, that's done a really good job. It's been a tough season for them. But it'll be a good game. It'll be a really good game. Two teams that are very even. So it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. So we will now move on to discussing the last day of the Bundesliga season. So on Saturday, the 28th of May, Bayern Munich were crowned Bundesliga champions after they defeated Cologne 2-1. So before every game kicked off on the last day, Borussia Dortmund were in pole position to win the Bundesliga, and all they had to do was win against Mainz on the last day of the season. However, they drew 2-2, which resulted in Bayern Munich winning the title. So, Pearse, what is your reaction to a dramatic last day of the Bundesliga season?
It was all set up for them. Dortmund have been by far the most dominant side in the Bundesliga this season. Played the nicest football. They've been the most exciting team to watch. Well, if you give Bayern Munich even half a chance, they take it. Bayern Munich have been, people say, like, struggling this season, but they somehow won their 11th title in a row. They're just Bayern Munich are just serial winners, to be honest. Guarantee Thomas Tuchel couldn't believe his luck when he's seen the scoreline 2-0 after like half an hour. And obviously Dortmund at home, the fans were all excited. The yellow wall was bouncing. And then obviously missed a penalty as well. Sebastian Haller, that fairy tale story, come back for the diagnosis of testicular cancer. And he's been a revelation since he's came back. And obviously getting a 96-minute equaliser to make it 2-2, but just it wasn't enough. It's just the fact is that Bayern Munich are similar to Man City. They're just serial winners, and you can never write them off. But although Dortmund have been exciting to watch, they just have I think it's like a mentality thing. They just can't seem to go over the line. Napoli had it for years, but they broke the curse this season and Serie A under Spalletti. And I do think Dortmund will eventually do it, but it might be next season or the season after. But I just hope they do it for Marco Reus's sake. I think he deserves it for. I think he's an absolute legend in Bundesliga and Dortmund.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaker for Dortmund. It really is. I think that's the best chance they'll get for quite a while now. You know, it was all set up for them, as you said. It was all set up for them to win. All they had to do was win against Mainz. And it's quite important to say that Mainz, going into that game, was not in good form. You know, before that game, I think they were on about a four losing streak run. So it wasn't as if it was a really hard game for Dortmund. But they'll be really kicking themselves because Bayern Munich have been poor in the league this season. You know, they've not really replaced Lewandowski. So it's been such a difficult season for Bayern, but they pulled it off. But for Dortmund, you know, that's them going to lose Bellingham now. Rafael Guerreiro's leaving. So, I mean, that's again, they're going through a change of players. And Bayern Munich they'll get stronger. You know, they will sign a top striker in the summer. So I do see Bayern Munich. You know, I think they will. I think, you know, their dominance will start getting even stronger now. And yeah, I think that was a chance miss for Dortmund. I really do. I think that'll be really hard for them to recover from for quite a while. So we will now move on to discussing the latest Scotland squad announcement. So on Monday, the 29th of May, Steve Clarke released his Scotland squad for the upcoming matches against Norway and Georgia. The biggest news was that Hibs striker Kevin Nisbet was recalled to the squad for the first time in 2 years. So Pearse, what is your reaction to the latest Scotland squad?
It's a very strong squad. Build on the two wins we got in the opening two matches, which were outstanding. The only probably big miss is probably Shea Adams, who picked up an injury for Southampton. But having Shankland in the squad and Nisbet as backup to Dykes is a good thing to have, because we've touched on the SBL. Hibs had a good run this season in the second half. That was down to Nisbet getting back from injury and back in form. So it's a good thing to have. I do think it's a very strong squad. Greg Taylor's back in the squad as well, Anthony Ralston. We've got Tierney, Robertson, usual back line. First choice goalkeepers. Midfield is the strongest it can be. So no, I'm very excited with that Scotland squad, and hopefully we can pick up maximum points in the next two matches in the upcoming qualifiers.
Yep. Just I just touched on Kevin Nisbet. It's good to see him back in the squad. I think he deserves it. He's had a really good season at Hibs. Um, you know, Grant Hanley, he's injured. He's a mainstay in the central that defence for Steve Clarke. So I think John Souttar coming back in, I think it's good to see. Ever since every time he comes into the Scotland squad, he's been really good for Steve Clarke. So I think it's good to see him back. Billy Gilmore as well. He wasn't really getting a look in at Brighton, but the last couple of months he's been playing more and showing his quality. So it's good to see him. And yeah, I mean it's a really good it's a really strong squad. You know, the biggest thing with the Scotland squad now is the consistency. It's always the same players getting picked. So there just seems to be a trust now with the Scottish public when they see the Scotland squad because they're so used to being together now. And yeah, no, it's a really strong squad. So obviously the game's coming up. It's a really big camp for Scotland. We've got Norway and Georgia to be played. So when looking at the squad, do you think it's strong enough to gain positive results against Norway and Georgia?
I think Georgia should be 3 points. If you can get at least a point against Norway. Norway's a funny one because Norway obviously have probably got an average squad, you'd probably say, not a great squad. But you've got two world-class players in Martin Odegaard and Erling Haaland. So they're the two players that Steve Clarke might have to try and nullify. Similar to what did with Rudiger stuck on Erling Haaland. You think somebody like Ryan Porteous might have to just stick with him, if he, or even I think Liam Cooper. So someone just kind of just stick tight to him and give him no threats, and obviously us going forward with a threat. Big Dykes, John McGinn, Armstrong, McGregor, Jack, Gilmore, and obviously the two wing backs and Hickey and Robertson, and you've got Tierney bombing on as well. So and you McTominay, who's had 3 goals in the last 2 games. He's on the form of his life now for Scotland. So no, exciting times. With a threat going forward, we're solid at the back. Let's give it a go. I think 4 points, a bare minimum, I think we should get through this camp, and that will set us in good stead to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, this is a massive, massive camp for Scotland, because they had a really good camp last time, 2 wins out of 2. If Scotland could get 2 positive results, as you said, if they could come out of these 2 games with a point and 3 points, I think that's them on their way to Germany in the Euros. So I think as a strong squad, like at the end of the day, like it's in my opinion, I've just gone to learn to trust the Scotland squad now. There's a consistency with it. They've all played with each other for a number of years now. So I mean, obviously that's going to be a big, big test away from home. The best player in the world, arguably at the moment, and then Haaland. Martin Odegaard, who's been unbelievable for Arsenal this season. 2 big threats. So I mean, it's going to be a big test. But I think Scotland are capable. They really are capable of going there and getting the result. So I think it is a strong squad. And yeah, the 2 games, and I'm really looking forward to them. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. So we will now move on to previewing this weekend's FA Cup and Scottish Cup final. So on Saturday, the 3rd of June, Manchester City and Manchester United will play each other in the FA Cup final, and Celtic and Inverness Thistle will play each other in the Scottish Cup final. So starting off with the FA Cup final, so Man United and Man City will play each other. So Pearse, are you looking forward to this weekend's FA Cup final?
Yes, I am. I've been interested to see what Manchester United try to do to counteract Man City's style of play. Because Man City, regardless who they pick and what system, everyone's comfortable. You look at John Stones playing midfield, Nathan Ake playing left back. The way they control the middle of the park, and then you've got your front line that can interchange, and it's just so free flowing. There's goals all over the park, and obviously Ten Hag's had a good season, but he has had a few humblings this season. So it'll be interesting to see. But I do think that Man City will run out comfortable winners. But it's not to say Manchester United won't have a threat, because they will. They've got good talented players, but they're not as attacking as Man City. And I just think Man City have just got that, like say, Erling Haaland and De Bruyne. I just think they'll just have a bit too much for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just start off by saying that Man United, they'll be desperate to win this because their treble is under threat. Obviously, with Man City being in the Champions League final and they've already won the Premier League, so Man United will be so motivated to win this. It'll be a really interesting match. I agree with you. I think Man City just have too much quality for Man United. So I do think Man City will win. But Man United are going to be going into that match full of motivation. And the fans will be they'll be cheering them on. They'll be desperate. I mean, they're all always desperate to win trophies, but they'll even be more desperate this time, especially against the fiercest rivals. So I think Man City they will come out winners, but that's going to be a brilliant match to watch. So we will also see Celtic play Inverness, Cali Thistle in the Scottish Cup final. So Pearse, are you looking forward to this weekend's Scottish Cup final?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Be a brilliant spectacle. Obviously, it's the underdog story of Inverness Cali Thistle getting to the final, which in itself is an achievement. And obviously Celtic in top form the week before the final is good timing for themselves. But I'm expecting a comfortable Celtic win. And obviously if they do play their brilliant best, no one can stop them in this country. But if they have even 5% dip in like application or willingness to run that half yard, and they're just a bit slack, or they're off it, or they're just not pressing as much, then this is what Inverness, the underdogs, nothing to lose, everything to gain. And obviously in the past they have been Celtic's bogey team. So they'll need to be at it, but I do expect a Celtic win.
Yep. It's going to be an interesting final. Obviously, Celtic are quite regulars now in the Scottish Cup final. It's good to see. Well, we've touched on this anyway, but it's good to see Inverness Carrick us win the final. A championship team getting there. As you said, I do expect a win for Celtic, probably a comfortable one. It's hard not to in terms of the quality between both teams. Celtic squad compared to Inverness's squad it's night and day. But I know a lot of people will think it'll be comfortable for Celtic, but I really wouldn't rule out Inverness. They've got a really good chance. They've not played in quite a while. Obviously, their season's finished quite a while ago now, so you don't know what way that'll go. They might be really rusty, or the preparation might have gone really well. They're rested, they're 100%. They've got their game plan spot on. They've had a lot of time to prepare for it. So it'll be interesting to see how they set up against Celtic, how they're going to be a threat. Because we all know that although Celtic were back on form last weekend, before that, they were a little bit inconsistent with the results. They did go through a pretty poor form of results. Defensively at the moment, Celtic aren't the strongest. But go back to it, I do think Celtic will win. I think they'll have too much for Inverness, but that'll be an interesting game. It really will. I'm quite intrigued to see how that'll go. So for the final part of the show, Pearse will now give his Asian football roundup.
Yeah, so there's nothing really major in terms of outside of the football matches itself. But we'll start off with the Japanese league. And on Saturday, we had 27th of May, we had Hokkaido Console Sapporo 1, Nagoya Grampus 2, Vissel Kobe 3, FC Tokyo 2, Sanfrecce Hiroshima 1, Shonan Bellmare 0, Sagan Tusu 2, Kashi Antlers 2, Kyoto Sangan 0, Ura Diamonds 2, and then finish it on Sunday, the 20th of May. We had Alberts Niigata 1, Gambo Osaka 3, Cerezo Osaka 2, Yokohama FC 0, Yokohama F Mariners 2, Avispa Fukuoka 0, Kawasaki Frontale 2, Kashiwa Reysol 0. So that's leaving the league table with Vissel Kobe on top, 33 points after 15 matches played. And then you've got Yokohama Mariners on 30 points in second. And in the third, you've got Nagoya Grampus on 29. And down at the bottom of the table, we've got Gambo Osaka rooted to the foot of the table on 10 points after 15 matches. You're at 17th place, you've got Shonan Bellmare on 11 points after 14 matches. And then Casio Reysol and Yokohama FC 16th and 15th respectively. Both played 15 matches and on 12 points. So in the Korean League, we had on Saturday, 27th of May, Jeju United 2, Samsung Suwon Blue Wings 1, Daegu FC 2, Incheon United 2. On Sunday, we had FC Seoul 1, Gangwon FC 0, Suwon FC 0, Gwangju FC 2, Ulsan Hyundai 3, Daejeon Hana Citizen 3. And then to finish it off on Monday, the 29th of May, Pohang Steelers 1, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors 0. So that's leaving the table. At the top of the table, you've got Ulsan Hyundai way out in front, 15 matches played, 38 points. And then you've got joint second, SC Seoul, Jeju United, and Pohang Steelers, all in 27 points. So as you can see, there's quite a gap, 11 points between the chasing pack. And then down at the bottom of the table, a similar scenario. 12th place with Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, 15 games played, 8 points. Then you've got Gangwon in 11th with 11 points, and then 9th and 10th respectively. Incheon United and Suwon FC both on 15 points apiece. And that's all your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse. And thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye-bye.